Philip Clark on 666 ABC Canberra.
The New South Wales Premier Mike Baird is expected to announce today that greyhound racing will remain on in the state, just 3 months after his contentious decision to ban the industry. State Cabinet's going to meet this morning, and it's likely, all the signs are that they'll give a tick of approval to the policy back down. It'll be, say some, a humiliation for Mike Baird. But what does it mean for ACT greyhound racing? After all, the ACT Government said on the back of the New South Wales decision that that would be it for greyhound racing here in the ACT. The decision, as I say, has been met with resistance by some who say, well, look, the whole industry is being punished for a few bad apples, mostly in Queensland, for that matter. The Chief Minister, Andrew Barr, joins me on the line this morning. Mr. Barr, good morning.
Good morning, Phil.
You've already said that greyhound racing's, there'll be no more of it here in the ACT off the back of the New South Wales decision. What does this back down mean for us?
Well, we'll need to obviously see the details of what the New South Wales Government announced today. It is quite a spectacular change in position from them, although from what I've just heard on your news update just before I went on there, it looks like a very significant scale back of the industry, though, in that they're talking about closing tracks and removing government funding and a much stricter regulatory framework, a limit on the number of dogs that can be bred each year. So it sounds like, without having seen any of the detail, a scale back, a dramatic scale back of the industry and a very tight set of regulations. But that is a world away from a few months ago, obviously. The situation in the ACT is clearly highly contingent on what happens in New South Wales, in that the industry, such as it is in the ACT, is predominantly driven by New South Wales participants who come here to race. There's a very, very small ACT.
Well, why it is? something that's puzzled me is, may puzzle listeners too. Why, if you don't want greyhound racing here in the ACT, why don't you just say, well, it's we're not going to have it, it's banned? You don't need to. Why do you need to be worried about what's going on in New South Wales at all?
I guess there's two issues there. One is the extent to which all that does is move a few races over the other side of the border.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that would mean in the ACT there'd be no greyhound racing, which is you say what you want, but you don't really have to wait for New South Wales, do you?
And that's still, I guess, part of a potential future, depending, of course, on what the New South Wales Government announces. So if they are announcing a scaled-back industry and the closure of tracks, then it's quite possible that the Canberra track does not continue in that New South Wales model, because there'll be no financial support for it and no racing that would be supported in that model. But again, we don't know yet. We haven't seen what the New South Wales Government...
You've already said, haven't you, that the nearly $1 million, I think, that the ACT Government gives to the industry here, that's been withdrawn and that won't be coming back regardless?
No, so the current funding arrangement ceases on the 30th of June 2017, and I've announced that we would not continue that. So there'd be no more funding for prize money, and I think that plus what it sounds like is happening in New South Wales would signal a scaled-back industry. And as I've said previously, the issues that have been raised in New South Wales, elsewhere in Australia as well, point to an industry that has great difficulties and has had multiple opportunities to address the issues, but looks like they're going to be given another opportunity here in a very strict regulatory environment.
But you agree, don't you, that you don't have to worry about New South Wales, you could just ban it here outright and there'd be no more greyhound racing in the ACT?
Well, I think the practical effect of the New South Wales scale back plus the withdrawal of ACT government funding for prize money will achieve that end.
Andrew Barr, good to talk with you. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Andrew Barr, the Chief Minister, and Mr. Barr and Mr. Hansard will be both in the studio on Friday for a one-on-one head-to-head debate the day before the election.
Philip Clark on 666 ABC Canberra.
Yes, what does the local greyhound racing industry think about the New South Wales ban being reversed? Kel Watt is on the line from the Canberra Greyhound Racing. This would be welcome news for you, would it?
Oh, it is. Look, it's a great sense of relief. The announcement of the ban for New South Wales came in July. the local club thought we were on pretty good ground, actually, given that it was only in June that the government, through Racing Minister Mick Gentleman, gave assurances that the local industry would continue to receive government support. So while the ACT government's always said that the local industry is really reliant upon New South Wales operating, we've argued that's not been the case. We had a plan for self-sufficiency. The most important thing, I think, though, for the listeners, is that for the entire 37 years that the club's been operating here in Canberra and the track's been holding racing, that there's never been an animal welfare breach. So some of the concerns that people have quite rightly raised around animal cruelty and live baiting have never occurred in the ACT. I know that there's been some people suggest that there's been links, and it's interesting they use that word. They've never said that trainers that have actually conducted live baiting have raced in Canberra. They've just said, oh, there's links. But I think every actor in Hollywood has a link to Kevin Bacon if you play the 6 Steps game. So to suggest that it's ever gone on here in Canberra is a very tenuous claim at the least.
The industry here in Canberra is pretty small, isn't it, Kel?
There's about 400 local participants. Now, I know one of the figures that's put out there is...
When you say a participant, what does that mean? You mean...
Well, that could be an owner, a breeder, a trainer, people that are employed.
Right.
So it's now I know again this is why it's very important to get the facts, Phil, is that one of the claims is that the funding and the support here in Canberra supports more people from New South Wales than the ACT. Now that's actually not right. It's around about 300 just over the border and around about 400 in the ACT. But even if you accept that as an argument, the maths works against you. But isn't it fantastic that there's an organisation here conducting an activity that is bringing about 90% of its clientele in from interstate? Now, I know there's funding available to Floriade, where they talk about 80% of participants there coming from interstate. Summer Nats, we welcome that every year, saying, look at all these people coming from interstate. Surely it's a good thing that the local economy is receiving a huge boost by owners and trainers coming in from New South Wales and elsewhere around Australia to spend money in the local economy.
The Chief Minister, well, you would have just heard him. He said that $1 million that they used to give to the club, we won't be doing that anymore. That'll run out in June next year. Does that what effect does that have on your operation here?
Well, that's a shock. That's a policy announcement on the run, to be quite frank with you. We met with the Minister, Mick Gentleman, Racing Minister, on the 23rd of August. At that time, now it's just a happy coincidence. There's nothing magical about the 30th of June when the New South Wales ban was supposed to
take place,
and the timing of the MOU between the thoroughbred harness and greyhound racing industries coming to an end. It's just a coincidence. We were invited at that time by the Racing Minister to be involved in the renegotiations for the new MOU, and he suggested that there would be some KPIs put around the sport, and we welcome it. It's actually quite unusual that you would have a local organisation going to the government saying, please work with us to have better regulations to run the sport in a more effective way, but that's what was going on. So at that time, we knew that there would have to be a renegotiation of money, and that might involve a range of KPIs and other demands being met. We were very happy with that. So the government moved to caretaker mode recently, and it looks like the Chief Minister just made up on the spot that the funding would be withdrawn because there's been no previous announcement. It wasn't government policy. And to be honest, to do that, we're completely blindsided. So we've had less than 24 hours to digest it.
It may be, mate. Can I ask you this, Kel? It may be if the New South Wales government decides that the industry is to be smaller and there are to be fewer tracks and so on, and the ACT government has withdrawn any financial help for you here, that may be an end of it in the ACT anyway.
Well, I'd put it to you that that's a fairly dishonest approach. Look, if the Chief Minister decides that greyhound racing is a bit old and kitsch and from a world that he doesn't, support and doesn't fit in with his shiny modern view of Canberra and the gentrification of Braddon and all the rest of it, come out and be honest about that. We can actually have a debate. But to try to strangle an industry that has got no animal welfare issues, has never had any other issues, provides 50 local jobs, and has failed to have consultation in any shape or form, it's just not an honest policy position. I think the people of Canberra, a few days out from election day, would want more than that. I know the Chief Minister well. I've seen him operate with great consultation and give a lot of thought to due process before, but the local racing industry hasn't been given it in this instance.
Okay.
So
all right.
The other thing I will say, Phil, is that if New South Wales does scale back, there's no great opposition to that from Canberra. There's 16 TAB race meets a week for greyhound racing out of New South Wales. So with fewer tracks, but safer tracks there, it actually means that Canberra could actually have an economic boom, picking up more race days. There's currently 2 race days. You could see the Canberra track become a better racing hub and actually bring more money into the local economy. But again, we'll have to wait until so that some of those details come forward.